Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Alba Party, of course, being set up by Alex Salmond and very much the splinter group from the SNP after that big divide between Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmond. And extraordinary, of course, you know, these were the two, I mean, giants of Scottish politics for so long, and giants as both as leaders and First Minister of the SNP and of Scotland. We are in extraordinary times to see this police investigation. Lots of the front pages of the Scottish papers and indeed many of the papers, the national papers for the whole of the UK, showing pictures of police officers, police vans, police crime tape around Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Murrell's home. That big tent erected. We normally see that when people are looking for bodies, for goodness sake. Police with shovels in the back garden of their house. A lot of people are saying, how the mighty are fallen. Big question today regarding Nicola Sturgeon specifically. She was First Minister. She was married to and lived in the same home as Chief Executive of the SNP, Peter Murrell. What she knew when about this police investigation and the likelihood of any possible arrests or questioning of her or her partner. Those questions need to be answered, don't they?
Well, these questions, of course, have been hanging around Scottish political scene for quite some time. And yesterday's events have very sadly been long anticipated. So whilst it may be a significant event elsewhere, it's something that has been in the making, if you like, for quite some time, or suspected that it might happen. And obviously, I'm very limited in what commentary I can provide, but the who knew what when questions about this specific event are significant, but they are not the only who knew what when questions that have been flying around Scottish politics for quite some time. So yes, I mean, it's an obvious question, and it seems implausible that the partner of any person would be completely in the dark as to such significant issues. It also, it does raise questions about the accelerated timing of that leadership election, that the constituted arrangements for the election of an SNP leader were shortened, and there are questions being asked about the reasons why that.
Well, that's it again. So it was a shock to many people that Nicola Sturgeon, suddenly announced that she was leaving, and then, as you say, this shortened period. I mean, I have to say, after the lengthy Tory leadership election last year, I think everyone was quite grateful it was much shorter. But again, the fact that this arrest and release, it must be stated, and no charges have been brought against Peter Murrell, that arrest coming, very soon after Humza Yousaf has been elected as the new leader. Question mark about this, were police in Scotland willing to delay these actions? Was there any contact between the leadership of the SNP and the police? But also, crucially, whether or not Kate Forbes, who came second, very much not the continuity Nicola Sturgeon candidate. She spoke out very much against things like the transgender self-ID issue and others. But Kate Forbes won 48% in that leadership election, far higher than many had expected. The continuity candidate, endorsed by the likes of John Swinney, the former deputy to Nicola Sturgeon, very much seen as Nicola Sturgeon's heir apparent. Humza Yousaf won 52%. If there had been an arrest, if there had been more about this investigation during that leadership election or before it, would it have been more likely that Kate Forbes will have won? Will it have changed the outcome of that election?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's helpful, particularly for me, to speculate on another political party's leadership contest. That is questions that the party needs to wrestle with, to be fair. But there are questions about that accelerated process, and I think that they will linger unless something is transparently done to address the concerns. But this was not just an SNP party leadership contest. Of course, the winner became the First Minister of Scotland, and therefore it is of significant interest now to all of the people of Scotland, who quite rightly will be asking the who knew what when questions, and they will be demanding clarity and transparency in those responses. But of course, I mean, this is the tumult, I guess, from a series of issues that have dogged the SNP for a long period of time from when I was a member, and were a large part of the reasons why I left the party, and particularly around child safeguarding. You mentioned GRR, but that is only one part of a reasonably long list of issues regarding safeguarding that I have deep concerns about. There's the hate crime legislation, there are the lack of transparency around allegations over LGBT Youth Scotland, there are concerns about what's been happening in the Children's Hearing Service, there's the school guidance about transitioning children, there's the ferry scandal on the build, but also connections to Europe. And of course, there are question marks over the policies around energy. So, Humza Yousaf, as First Minister, has a veritable feast of challenges before him. And this really is the last thing that anyone needs. And as you say, continuity and that link with the Sturgeon years and given recent events is not an additional burden that any leader would wish to have.
And no, indeed. And one, let's be honest, with Humza Yousaf, with whatever his talents, who doesn't have the same political nous and talent and media performance style that Nicola Sturgeon has. Because what's so interesting, I mean, we talk about sort of Teflon politicians in the UK, the likes of, the Boris Johnsons who sort of, keep bouncing back and the like. But actually, that's usually after, some sort of wrongdoing or incompetence or whatever is exposed. Nicola Sturgeon seems to have just sort of walked on water for many in the Scottish media and the national media for most of the years she's been in charge, treated with kid gloves, very few questions being asked about her legacy, got away, frankly, scot-free in terms of criticism of her COVID policies, outcomes, the stats worse than they were in England, and yet lots of criticism quite rightly of the Conservative government in Westminster, but very little of her. She's now off the political scene. I mean, you're in a party with Alex Salmond. You left, as you say, the SNP almost exactly 2 years ago now to defect to the Alba Party. Alex Salmond off the scene from SNP. Nicola Sturgeon. Is this the end of the sort of what's almost been a one-party state in terms of Scottish National Party rule?
Well, I think what it is the end of the SNP's hegemony over the case for independence. I think that is absolutely the case. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because there are very different, there's a very different issue here. A party and a political leader is not the independence movement. The independence movement is a completely separate, non-organised group of people who are determined to see independence for Scotland. Yeah. And whilst they do need a political voice, it's been clearer and clearer over the last few years that the SNP did not represent a significant number of SNP or of former SNP supporters. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why the Alba Party exists. There's also other independent supporting parties that have sprung up. And so, there is plenty of passion in the independence movement. And I don't think anyone should be confused that the trials of the SNP are the trials of the independence movement.
Well, you may say that, but I think that will actually be the net effect. We'll have to leave it there, though. 8:19 is the time.